MSI Claw with the Ultra 7 155H. Alright, so now that we got this open, we got our little manual here. And here it is. Looks like the sheet just basically says to plug it in and power it on. It's not too informative. We got probably the actual manual here. And our charger. So let's plug it in and see what happens. And power on. Forgive the glare here. We'll hook it up with an external HDMI device in a bit. Just want to see the power on. So it looks like we've got our MSI logo. Alright, these are our results for Crystal Disk Mark. We got 3150 on read and 2673 on write. This is an older version of Crystal Disk Mark, but I may have to update it. So on throttle stop, it looks like in extreme performance mode, we have a 45 watt PL2 and a 43 watt PL1, turbo 56 seconds. PL4 is listed at 115 watts. Looks like right now, just with Windows updates, it's already hitting 90s, 100s thermal throttling. And this thing has a ceiling of 105, although in Intel spec it says 110 for these processors. P cores run at 4.8 up to 4 cores, and then otherwise it's 4.6 gigahertz for max turbo. Alright guys, so I put all the Windows processes on the LP cores with the sole exception of Cinebench and a few other select programs like Throttle Stop here. And we're going to run R20 and then we're going to run R23. So let me get this out of the way. Okay. Let's just see the clocks there. It looks like it's floating around 2.5 at 3 gigahertz. It's pretty fast, I would say. Looks like we're dropping the 2.2 gigahertz, 2.5. I'm just waiting for it to finish here. So we scored about 3,881 points, which is really good for a run-of-the-mill. I forgot to put Cinebench in real-time mode. In real-time mode, it scores 4,777 points, which is really good, I would say. Now we're running R23 single-core benchmark. At normal priority, we got 9733 points and 1,614 points on single core. So at max priority, we scored 12,068 and 1,742. So it looks like we scored 2,069 points on 1080p Extreme on Unigen Superposition benchmark. We averaged 15.48 FPS, our minimum was 12 and our max was almost 19. So now we're going to run Heaven Benchmark with these settings, see what it does. Alright, so it looks like we got 36 FPS average with 8.8 FPS mins and 66-ish FPS at max. Scores 918 points at 1080p Ultra. So it looks like in our previous Cinebench run, we weren't running at max fan speed. The software, I put it to run, but it doesn't seem like it was responding. But after reboot, now it's definitely at max fan speed. So our scores climbed a little bit to 14,652. So it appears the sleep mode doesn't quite turn it off. It just kind of remains on. Yeah, it doesn't really turn off. Now we're gonna run Unigen Valley 1080p Ultra, see how it performs here. I couldn't get the capture card to work, so we're just gonna run it like this. But while we're running our benchmark, we'll sample the volume here, and the volume gets pretty loud. It's louder than my laptop. So this is our score for Unigen Valley at 1080p Ultra. We got 63.6 FPS, a score 2660. Our minimum was 29.8 and our max was 111.1. Total system power while plugged in on max performance mode with fans at full speed seems to float between 16 and 22 watts. And that's system power at idle, so that's not doing anything, that's just idle at the desktop. So this benchmark is about to finish here. We're doing the combined test, and we'll have our results. So we scored 7,472 with 8245 on the graphics and 23,027 on physics with a combined score of 2,751. Now we'll do a round of 3D Mark Time Spy. See what kind of scores we get. So on 3D Mark's Time Spy, we scored 3360 points. Average is 3701. Our graphics score is 3011. Our CPU score was 9845. So on memory read, we scored 80,183 megabytes per second. We scored 76,107 megabytes per second on write. On copy, we scored 80,509 megabytes per second. And for latency, we scored 139.8 nanoseconds. And that's about it for IDA 64. So now we're running LinPack Extreme at the standard settings, 5 passes, and it looks like we get a consistent 220 gigaflops. So for SuperPi 32 million, we got a result of 6 minutes and 25 seconds. For the Furmark benchmark at 1080p, we scored 2146. Still under Furmark, it appears total system power is around 62 watts. The GT, which is the integrated graphics, is pulling about 22 to 25 watts. So in Geekbench 6, on our CPU benchmark, we scored 2345 in single core and 11,384 multi-core. For the GPU, our OpenCL score was 30,275. Our Vulkan score was 37,283 for Geekbench 6. So this is what the standard BIOS looks like. Not too many options here, but you can go into the advanced BIOS, which we're gonna do in just a second. So for those who don't know, it's a right shift, right control, left alt, and then F2 for MSI. Standard boost clocks for the E cores are as follows: 3.8 up to 4 cores it appears, and 3.1 up to 4 and 5, and 2.8 for all. So after playing with AC load line, it does not appear that there's any significant difference in performance, and right now we disabled 5 of the P cores, so there's only 1 P core active, and all the other 10 E cores remain active. We scored 6209 points on Cinebench. If I lowered AC load line from the default of 190 to 150, the score seemed to float around 12,000, so doesn't seem to affect performance too much. So with 4 P cores enabled, we scored 9818 points, making it functionally identical to the Ultra 5 135H, since that only has 4 P cores. So now we're running with only the P cores enabled. The E cores are disabled and the SoC cores are disabled. So power consumption seemed actually slightly lower with just 1 P core and the 10 E cores enabled versus all 6 P cores enabled. So with our 6 P cores, 12 threads, we scored 7,495 points. Wattage seemed to exceed 40 watts. Under Prime 95, with only the P cores enabled, you will see about somewhere between 2.4 and 2.8 gigahertz. With hyperthreading disabled and all the cores turned on, we scored 9,930 points. One thing to note is that since disabling and playing around with the P cores, I did unhook from the dock, so it is running purely on battery power for these tests. I will test again with plugged in to the charger to have a more faithful comparison to the earlier scores, since it was plugged in performance mode there. Under wall power, we scored 11,443 points, again hyperthreading disabled. Under wall power with only 1 P core enabled, we scored 8,424 points, which is 2,000 more than with it unplugged from wall power. So in Ultra 5 135H mode, which is 4 P cores instead of the 6 and 200 megahertz downclock, we got 11,503 points. So there you have it. This wasn't intended to be an all-comprehensive review or anything like that. It's just wanted to focus more on the CPU side of things. So thanks for watching.